Let's now chat to Washington correspondent Analise Nunez for her comments on the speech we just heard. Hey there, Analise. Good to see you. So what do you think? Was it a disservice to the nation, the Supreme Court's decision?
Look, this has definitely been an approach by the Biden administration to say we have to reframe the discussion after this disastrous debate appearance. And so this is why we had a fairly controlled speech here. They want to put the focus back onto democracy being at stake because they know from the polling that that very much is where it plays into the strengths for Joe Biden compared to Donald Trump. They want to be talking about this again, but you can't ignore the fact that this is playing out politically extremely poorly for Joe Biden. When he goes into this argument of what's come out of the Supreme Court today, this isn't a definitive statement yet, and certainly not to the extent that he was framing it there. It's going to go back to the district court level, and then at that point it could be appealed depending on what they decide official acts are. So what this has essentially done is delayed things more than really clarified it any more extreme. This is not what out of the Supreme Court what Donald Trump wanted, and it's not what Joe Biden the Democrat prosecutors wanted either. So when it comes to this actual statement, I think we need to look at the context here. The fact that he's doing this late at night, local time, it's all to put forward that idea that he's fine, everything's fine, they're going to go back to business as normal and try to put the debate performance behind them, while the knives are out among their own Democrats. And as much as the wagons are circling to try to protect Joe Biden, as much as his family's saying you need to stay in, this is coming out. We've just seen New Hampshire now. Donald Trump's polling ahead. Gretchen Whitmer is saying that they should be prepared to lose Michigan, which would be disaster for the Democrats. This is definitely a statement to try and take that attention away.
Analise, what am I saying? Let me also bring in our other guest, who is former White House Chief of Staff and Bondi Partners consultant Mick Mulvaney, for his views on this. Hi there, Mick. So do you agree this is just to distract everyone away from the debate performance?
But it's not at all what I expected, to be honest with you. And I don't know what Analise heard before the speech began, but I was under the impression he would be taking questions afterwards, that this was part and parcel, not only to try and change the narrative on substance off of the debate and on to the Supreme Court decision, but also to sort of defray some of the concern about his performance in the debate, to sort of show that he was able to stand and take questions for half an hour or so or something. To turn around and to walk back into the Oval Office like he just did is the type of thing that makes me wonder, have they given up? Are they actually trying to save his place at the top of the ticket? Or are they now just fighting a battle, Democrat versus Republican, regardless of who the Democrat turns up to being? It's a very stunning turn of events in just the last 10 minutes, as far as I'm concerned.
So away from, Joe Biden's statement, what about the Supreme Court's decision itself? Is it really an era of kings above the law now in the U.S.?
No, and listen, I've read the decision, and I'm a little surprised at Justice Sotomayor's dissent. To be honest with you, it's probably a great disservice to the court. No one really agrees with her on the left or the right that a president could hire or instruct a military operation to kill his opposition and not be charged with a crime. I've not found anybody who agrees with that so far today, including some folks on the left. It's just a bizarre sort of example of something that no one believes to be true. Look, this is the right decision. But what the Supreme Court said today is if a president is doing something in his or her official capacity, he can't be charged with a crime for that. If you're doing something outside of your official capacity and you commit a crime, you can be charged with that. And oh, by the way, there could be some gray area in between as to what is an official act or not, but we'll leave that to the local courts. Keep in mind, under our system, the Supreme Court doesn't take any evidence. Only the trial courts in our system take evidence. So the Supreme Court oftentimes sends matters back to the trial courts to gather additional evidence, which is exactly what happened here. If this had been a Democrat president, my guess is this decision would have been 9-0 today. It's simply the right decision. And it's that very incendiary dissent from Justice Sotomayor that you saw President Biden quote regularly or repeatedly in his speech just now that seems to be getting all the attention.
Mick, now there seems to be talk about a higher odds of a Trump win and slight likelihood of Biden standing down, but there's no real Democrat candidate who can appeal nationally, right?
There isn't, and that's the difficulty they face. Joe Biden has always been sort of a consensus candidate, at least going back to 2020, that even the progressives, the centrists, the Hispanics, the African Americans, the Caucasians, they all sort of got together and said, okay, we're okay with Joe Biden. There is nobody that fills that role. Keep in mind that the natural sort of successor should be Vice President Kamala Harris, an African American woman. But there's many, many Democrats that think she's actually a weaker candidate than Joe Biden, so they're not really sure they want her. So yes, it's causing a great deal of confusion on the left. If there was a consensus sort of heir apparent, a next in line that the Democrats liked as much as they liked Joe Biden, this would be an easy call for them, but that person doesn't exist.
And can you break down for our Aussie viewers what would be the impact on Australia if Trump wins?
You see a lot of the same. The policies are going to stay the same. We would probably have more battles like we did during the first Trump administration over tariffs. I remember very vividly working with Ambassador Joe Hockey back in 2017 on the proposed tariffs on Australian steel that cooler heads ultimately prevailed and we didn't put those tariffs on. You can expect those types of discussions again. But at the macro level, writ large, on things like AUKUS and the Quad and Five Eyes and so forth, you can expect the very close relationship between Australia and the United States to continue regardless of the outcome of this election. And that's as it should be.